Well, hello and welcome to episode number 308 of the PT UK, Plain Talking UK podcast. So on today's fully actioned up show then, we can say COVID-19 is going to be blamed for the collapse of the UK's biggest regional carrier. A mechanic is sentenced to 3 years in prison for aircraft tampering. And there's also big delays at Frankfurt due to a drone incident. In the military news this week, Air Force's top general has bad news for the KC-46 programme, and a UAV manufacturer wants to give aerial tankers their own missile-laden drones. But joining me this week in the PTUK studios, as always, and he's a bit worried because his clock's 10 seconds fast. But welcome, Matt Smith.
Hello. Did you miss me last week by any chance?
I know you were 10 seconds late.
Right. Okay. Rude.
Did I miss you last week? I have to say, I'm getting better at this stuff, Matt. I think I'm getting better at this stuff.
Right. Okay. Can I have that in writing?
There's a few minor.
I know. I edited it.
Yes. Oh yeah, you did. Yeah. There's a few minor mistakes. But I mean, where do you reckon I am now? 90% there.
I'll give you a strong 75, certainly. But
that is so harsh.
Absolutely,
really harsh.
I did say to you actually, because as I was meeting up with an old friend, I was actually not in. By the way, I wasn't in the Caribbean, despite what you said. I was actually in Costa del Glasgow,
nice.
and meeting up with an old friend. And we were actually sat there listening to the show in the Weatherspoons in Glasgow. So
nice.
that was
cheap beer then.
Yes, very much so.
Well, you should have said I could give you some vouchers.
I had proper haggis.
Ooh.
Oh, what do you mean, oof? Oh dear. Anyway, well that killed that conversation.
Yeah,
anyway, hi Nev, nice to see you.
Welcome, Nev, Mr. Bounds. Welcome onto the show.
Yes, and last week Matt was sending messages to me about Carlos's technical performance, shall we say?
No. Sorry, that's really unfair. But I do have a thing. See, I'll do it now. You see, because every time we switched from camera to camera, he kept doing this.
That looks nice.
We're fading from what it's and
you don't like that, do you?
No, I don't.
You don't like a fade?
No, I don't like it. No, I do between video and live,
okay.
But not. But not. Do I need to? I've got.
Do we need to instigate a training manual for the PTK
so, yeah. I think
studios?
I should make everybody sit in the studio, and then they will have proper training and guidance.
See, everyone sitting at home in the world of YouTube just looks and thinks, "Oh, it's all just seamless work."
To be fair, mate, I think everybody watching at home on YouTube really couldn't give a damn.
Okay, fair enough.
To be fair.
So
but anyway, first world problems and all that.
You may have noticed we are
missing. Did
missing.
You miss me?
I know. Just shush.
Okay.
God, where's that bottle of scotch I gave?
Yeah, okay.
So you may have noticed that we're missing a certain host for the show this week, and Armando, unfortunately, he is in the world of flightings this week, and he's busy flying around the busy jetways of the US of A. So Armando, if you're listening, or maybe listening, you never know, he might be at the flight levels.
I mean, I'd like to think if he's flying, he might be a little busy.
So Armando can't be with us, but don't panic because he has sent in a few little videos and stuff to play. So,
yes. So he's here in spirit, if nothing else.
Yeah. So how are things with you, Nev? Have you been jaunting around Europe as usual, or obviously with this hideous virus destroying
don't say it.
Destroying the world.
Don't start him off.
Don't start me off on that. No, this week has been London, but driving my car around London this week has been very pleasurable, very quiet, very little traffic on the road.
Well, there is some positives then.
I think people have, we're just going to work from home or self-isolate or whatever we call it these days.
Right. Yeah.
It was actually quite reasonable driving around the Hyde Park corner area, which is normally the Grand Prix madness that it usually is.
Yeah.
And the Bayswater Road, that was all very sensible. So
was it?
But that's a bit like, it wasn't quite Sunday morning driving, but
right.
It wasn't.
No. I mean, actually, Park Lane is quite a lot of fun for anybody who has been in London, actually, because it's a bit of a standing start, isn't it? You can do a bit of sort of rozzing off the lights, and it's quite an exciting.
Well, you do in Nev's banana.
Well, you do absolutely.
It'd be rude not to.
Everybody's not, leave everybody standing in the banana. But
actually, how are you getting on with the Matmobile, the new Matmobile?
The new Matmobile is very awesome. You'll be very proud of me because it's still very clean.
Oh, good.
I know,
Good.
right? Yes, and it's still got a full tank of fuel in it. Yeah, I haven't topped it up since I bought it. I'm so frightened to drive it.
Yes,
the Matmobile is blooming awesome.
Lovely.
Yeah,
good. I'm pleased to hear that.
Very much so. Can I just say, actually, I've got to say this. I'm sorry. I was watching APG last night.
Oh yeah. Any particular reason why?
Well, I just sort of tuned in because I didn't have anything else to do, and then lo and behold, there was a certain Miami Rick reappear.
Miami Rick.
Oh my goodness me! I've never been so happy to see somebody on a podcast in my life. It was so good to see him. It was like welcoming back an old family friend. You know what I mean? It was like,
it's good to see him back on the show.
It was, absolutely, yeah. Anyway, sorry, that was just as a side to nothing.
Don't spoil it for me because I haven't watched it yet. I tuned in for the first 5 minutes and said hello to Jeff.
Right. Okay. In that case, it was it wasn't. You won't like it.
I'll download the audio version. That's it. Exactly. So we've got loads to get through this week, loads of news. Obviously, it's been a news-packed, filled week of stuff this week, mostly to do with the
don't say that
thing.
word, he'll get upset.
Mostly to do with that. But we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news.
We're not going to do...
No, we're not. Oh, no, because we've got... Oh, hold on.
It's
actually,
top of the month, isn't it? Yeah,
top of the month. But before we do, actually...
Okay.
Actually, before we do, I will just say a quick hello to my boss, Stuart, who's watching as well. So hello to you, Stu. Hope you're well. He's not feeling very well this week.
Oh, is he not?
No,
has he got the coronavirus?
He's not got the coronavirus.
Is he self-isolating?
No, he is self-isolating. But he's not.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good of him. Yeah.
He's fine.
Nev's got his head in his hands. I would show you, but I've got the wrong buttons in situ.
No, I've got my Diacom. I'll be okay.
Anyway, so it is the top of the month, which means we have one thing that we need to do.
So Nev, what's going on?
We call it payday here at Plain. And it's to thank all of you excellent Patreon donors that have donated during the last month. And they are Adam Spink, Andrew Wilson, Captain Jeff, Chris Griggs, Eric Graves, Evan Shue, Graham Haley, Jeff Ward, Jonathan Warner, Jordan Rose, Liz Piper, Magnus Rudbeck, Masha, Matt Caton, Megan Carrion, Myla, Owen, Neil Lanwarn, Nicholas Hewitt, Nico Rager, Philip Labe, Ray Williams, Ruben Wells, Stuart Backer, Stephanie Plummer, Stuart Black, and Tanya Wyman. And those who are on the PayPal system, the monthly donations, they came in from Tony S., Jenny Parkinson, Alan Loveday, Mazuz Karim, Dave Willis, and Richard Adams. Thank you very much indeed, one and all. We really appreciate your donations.
Oh yeah, no, it makes a huge difference to us here, isn't it? It's nice because the show pays for itself now, which is fantastic. Isn't it?
It paid for the 300 show in London. It covered that, and it also supplies obviously fresh cabling and stuff, which I think one of yours will have to be replaced soon.
Oh really? Oh dear, have I got something failing? Have I? Oh dear. If you'd like to become a Patreon, then take yourself to the Patreon website. So how do you spell that? Is it
Patreon.
There we are. You
Patreon.
See, Patreon.com. Yes. Search on there for Plain Talking UK, and then you can become a patron doing that. You don't have to do that. You can also use the link on our website with Amazon,
which I've done today.
Right, yes, and when that way you can sort of donate to the show if you like, without actually having to physically pay for it, which is great. You just do your shopping through that link on our website,
which I've done today,
which Carlos did today. And yes, we get like an advertising referral fee that we can then use to put towards cables and such like.
Do you ever look to see what people are buying through the Amazon link?
It is possible to do that. I don't know if I dare.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I dare.
I mean, I buy random things, but I brought...
I'll tell you what, before the end of the show, I'll log in and have a look, and we'll see what we can find. Okay.
Well, we might have to censor some of the things, especially if Captain Al's been buying
Good
products.
point, yes. We may have to wait till after 9 o'clock before I read the list out in full, certainly. But there we are. Yes, that'll be a treat for everyone. I'll look it up in a moment. Anyway, we better do some news.
I know.
Yeah,
so we are going to kick off the show now. So we do each week with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world. and the UK. So if everyone is ready...
Yes.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story, and this one is on the bbc.co.uk website. As you all know, for those of you who live in the UK and across the globe will probably have known that, unfortunately, this week we said goodbye to another airline here in the UK, being Flybe. Went into administration this week, putting 2,000 jobs at risk after a bid for fresh financial support failed. The Exeter-based carrier said the impact of the coronavirus outbreak on demand for air travel was partly to blame for its collapse. Flybe boss Mark Anderson said he was very sorry for the firm's collapse. In a letter to the airline's staff, Chief Executive Mark Anderson said, "Despite every effort, we have no alternative, having failed to find a feasible solution to allow us to keep trading." In response to the collapse, the UK government said it was ready to help Flybe's workers find new jobs, and it would work with other airlines to replace services. They said that we're working closely with industries to minimise any disruption to routes operated by Flybe, including looking urgently at how routes not already covered by other airlines can be re-established by the industry. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said that everyone was gutted about the news and added that we really tried everything we could to make the turn this year. Unfortunately, with the situation that's developed with the virus, an already weak company, I'm afraid, has just not been able to survive. So obviously it's upset lots of passengers, hasn't it, guys, across the UK. We'll be obviously in these situations, as we say all the time, you have to always it's not just the passengers who are affected. It's all the staff, the pilots, the crews, the engineers, the cabin crews. It's all those people who, have turned up for work, and they've lost their jobs. Essentially, they've got their job. Just a few summary bits about Flybe, just for those of you who may not know. Flybe started operations in 1979 as Jersey European Airways. In 2002, they rebranded to Flybe. 2010, they floated on the stock exchange. And they had here, 2010, they poured money into orders worth $1.3 billion for 35 Embraer ERJ 175s, I should say. There's also lots of things here about, obviously, the part with Stobart played, and obviously 2019 saw the airline being brought by a consortium with Cyrus Capital, Stobart Group and Virgin Atlantic, collectively being known as Connect Airways Consortium. February 2020 slump in bookings, they said here, that could have been down to the wonderful virus that everyone's talking about now.
What virus is that, Carlos?
Oh, we'll ask Nev in a moment.
Okay, can't
So,
wait.
of the 120 routes flown by the airline, approximately 88 are not served by any other carrier. It's safe to say, I listened to the news this week, obviously, and Flybe did have quite an extensive network within the UK and Europe as well.
I think it's also worth mentioning at this point, actually, that Loganair have agreed to take on some of Flybe's routes. So they take on 16, as far as I'm aware. The routes from existing Loganair base airports at Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Inverness and Newcastle will be launched over the next 4 months. They include services between Aberdeen and Belfast City, Edinburgh and Manchester, and Glasgow and Exeter. The airline said it aimed to maintain essential air connectivity within the UK regions to keep customers flying.
EasyJet have stepped in. They announced that they would fly staff members home for free for 24 hours after the collapse. So I think that helped quite a bit as well. It's always nice to see airlines helping each other in these situations.
Yeah, definitely.
Nev, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't understand it. I know this is going to be a very naive thing to say, but if you think about the routes that Flybe had, and in terms of the regional connectivity that they offered from Aberdeen down to Exeter, Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh, what they were doing flying in and out of London, Gatwick and London Heathrow, I will never know, because the costs associated with that must be absolutely horrific. But if you think about it, they've got more or less exclusivity on all of these other regional routes, the what I would call the diagonal routes across the country. And there's nobody else competing. And in the case of Southampton, for example, 95% of the ops were Flybe. And they are operating low-cost aircraft with low running costs, the Dash 8. They were operating the Embraer 175, and I think they had a couple of 195s as well. So they've got all the right ingredients, and why they could not make it work, I will never know. I just don't understand it. Now, I do realise that some of the press have been talking about the Brexit thing, where they are selling in pounds and they're buying in dollars effectively. So, whether it's fuel or aircraft maintenance or parts or whatever it is, in some cases. But nonetheless, without any real competition on any of the routes, apart from probably the Channel Islands routes, I really don't understand why this happened. And there might be a bit of the coronavirus business in the last month or so.
I mean, it certainly had an impact on everyone, booking flights, hasn't it? I mean, it's got to be sort of part of it. So, one of the stories that I was reading about this, they were saying that essentially they were sort of promised some help by the government, essentially, that was then withdrawn. Is that correct? Or have I?
It never really happened, I don't think.
Yeah. But I mean, is that essentially that they were trading on a promise that was then rescinded, or because we were talking about this a few weeks ago, weren't we? Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where they were in trouble, but they were saved at the last minute.
Back end of Christmas and the start of January, we're having this conversation. Yeah. Weren't we? But as I say, I really don't understand why they couldn't make this work properly, because with such a excellent route network, and also going into places like Amsterdam as well. Was really useful. So very, very odd. I do not really understand the full story here. I think that the government's desire to level up, as they keep saying, so that the regions have good connectivity. And it's good to see that Loganair and Easy have stepped up and taken some of these routes. I think there'll be some more as well. So we'll see what happens. But they can't afford to lose connectivity from Exeter and Southampton, for example. Those are, absolutely key hubs and routes for people to go in and out of.
Do you not think as well, just before we move on to the next story, that it may have been a big pricing as well? Personally, I've looked at their flights for a few years now. To go up to Edinburgh. We've looked at going to Edinburgh for a little jaunt for a sort of long weekend, and when you compared the prices of flights with, say, EasyJet to Flybe, the Flybe flights were nearly double the price.
Yeah. I mean, there was because there were sort of loans and stuff that were being spoken about when the two loans were separate but stemmed from talks back in January. One is a sort of time to pay deal. The other was an actual loan. The loan had a load of cravats and had to be further negotiated, and that's basically where the talks broke down. I mean, it's also that. I mean, there is that. The trouble is I guess if you're having help from the government, it seems very unfair. Perhaps I apologise if I'm speaking a little bit out of turn, but it seems a little bit unfair that if you're going to help out Flybe, then you have to help out people like Ryanair and EasyJet and all that, because although they're not classed as regional carriers, they are nevertheless doing a lot of these. There's a lot of sort of Stansted to Dublin, for example. I mean, you could argue that's technically a regional route, perhaps. I don't know. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Really, because it's like if you're going to help one, then you've got to help all of them, surely. And of course, we lost BMI not that long ago, wasn't it? Was it BMI? Yeah.
Yeah,
it was BMI.
I don't know.
So if you take Monarch, Thomas Cook, BMI, and now Flybe, that's 4 failures within the space of 3 years, isn't it?
And big names.
These weren't, tin pot airlines. These were quite
well established. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, obviously, as we said a moment ago, I mean, we're sort of spitballing here. I guess we'll never really know the full ins and outs of it. But obviously, our hearts go out to, certainly, I think in our case, not so much for the passengers. I'm sorry they've had inconvenience, but obviously we're all feeling for everybody who worked for that. What was certainly seen by those that worked and flew with them and all that kind of thing as a wonderful airline. I mean, I've never heard any negative reports about Flybe and their service or their pilots or their planes or anything. I mean,
you couldn't miss the planes.
Well, no, exactly. So I mean, obviously, it's so sad that these wonderful people are out of work. I mean, it's just your heart sinks every time you see a story like this, don't you?
So the next story, moving on from Matt, this is quite interesting because it's one of the biggest low-cost carriers having a possible change in
I guess in some respects perhaps this is slightly inevitable, I guess, given all the trouble that I'm going to say the 737 MAX.
Moving on.
Sorry. Flight Global is the source, and the headline is Ryanair chief leaves door open to Airbus order. So Ryanair Group Chief Executive Michael O'Leary would be open to ordering Airbus A320s, provided a European manufacturer can come up with the right offer. So the A320 is a great aircraft, he told Cirium at the A4E Aviation Summit in Brussels, although he stresses that so too is the Boeing 737 MAX. So he's still sticking up for them, I guess. So the Airbus aircraft are more expensive than the Boeing aircraft, so an A320 operator like Lauda makes less money than Ryanair does, says O'Leary. Also, there's more intense competition in Vienna. Ultimately, the difference is like that between the Toyota Corolla and the Volkswagen Golf. They both fulfill exactly the same function. The question is, can you buy cheaper? I mean, that's one way of looking at it. O'Leary, who reveals that he took a call from Airbus last week, adds, I would talk to Airbus and Boeing if the price was right and the slots came up. Asked whether he expected Ryanair to have any Airbus aircraft in its fleet in 10 years' time, he responded, I doubt it, but I think there's every chance we'll have Airbus aircraft in the Lauda fleet, because they've already got Airbus stuff in there, haven't they? Ryanair has 50 MAX jets on order, but deliveries have been delayed, have they, by the aircraft's grounding, forcing the airline to scale back its expansion plans. It will now not take delivery of its first MAX until winter 2020. Despite this, O'Leary recently said that the airline is in discussions to purchase more of the jets. And I suppose, sorry, Nev, the word coronavirus is about to be said again. It's I know he's rolling his eyes at me now. But I guess at the moment, given the fact that the MAX is still on the ground, and people aren't sort of booking flights, perhaps because of, let's say, an overreaction to the coronavirus thing, maybe he's quite grateful they are on the ground.
But moving away from the whole virus thing,
oh, okay, all right.
You've said this before a million times in the show, actually, Matt. If you've got a fleet of if you've got a fleet of Boeings, and then you go and sling some Airbuses in, that's a whole different set of training,
it's a whole new set of
different engineering,
parts
and labour and everything else. Yeah. So it's
realistically, he's not likely to move away, is he?
No, he's going to stick with Boeing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So moving on to the next story, and Nev, it's good news for Boeing.
Finally, on the simpleflying.com website. It says that Boeing has just conducted its first taxi test on the Boeing 737 MAX 10. The test was run on the 3rd of March today in Renton, in Washington State. Taxi tests are a routine part of an aircraft's design and certification process. It involves a series of taxi and runway maneuvers, including accelerating down the runway. Taxi tests do not involve becoming airborne. I would never have thought that. The MAX 10 is yet to undertake its first test flight, though. Boeing told Simple Flying that they are on track to do so later in 2020. Deliveries were expected to commence later this year, but are now expected to begin in 2021. That, of course, is subject to the worldwide grounding of the 737 MAX aircraft being lifted. And the aircraft is the MAX 10 is the biggest aircraft in the MAX family. It'll be powered by the latest technology CFM International LEAP 1B engines and feature advanced technology winglets, Boeing Sky Interior, large flight deck displays, and other features designed to deliver the best possible flight experience. At 43.8 metres in length, the MAX 10 just pips the length of the MAX 9. In comparison, the MAX 8 is 39.52 metres in length, and the MAX 7 is 35.56 metres in length. All four aircraft in the MAX family have the same wingspan at 35.56 metres. And whilst the MAX 10 can carry the most passengers, up to 230, depending on cabin configuration, it has the shortest range of the four aircraft. The MAX 10 can fly up to 6,110 kilometres, which is pretty good for a narrow-body jet, but the smaller aircraft in the MAX family can go further, and the best performer is the MAX 7, which can fly up to 7,130 kilometres. Boeing has sold over 3,200 MAX aircraft. MAX 8 aircraft. MAX 10 is the second most popular variant in the MAX family, having sold 550 of the aircraft, all of which are yet to be delivered. Customers include AerCap, multiple aircraft leasing companies, Copa Airlines, Fly Dubai, GOL, Lion Air, Malaysian Airlines, TUI, and Sky Up Airlines. The biggest customer is United Airlines, and United have put their hand up for 100 MAX 10 aircraft. The United order dates back to June 2017, which must seem like a lifetime ago for Boeing. At that time, Andrew Levy, United Airlines Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, said the 737 MAX 10 will enable us to continue using larger and more efficient aircraft within our domestic network and better meet the needs of our customers today and into the future. United expect to take delivery of its first MAX 10s later in 2020. Of course, with the MAX aircraft grounded and production suspended, the original timelines won't stick. United Airlines was flying 14 MAX 9s prior to the grounding 12 months ago. It had planned to be operating 30 MAXs by now. But the MAX 10 taxi test today represents a bright spot for both Boeing and the customers like United Airlines who have ordered the aircraft. Despite all the problems at Boeing, things are still moving forward. Well, some good news, finally, at least. I think that, as long as everything is on track, obviously the aircraft, I believe now, will be back in the air at some point. I must say, if you'd asked me that question, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, I'd be a bit doubtful about it. But it looks more promising, doesn't it?
It sits in between, believe it or not. The MAX 10 sits in between the 757, 200 and 300 NEV with passenger capacity. So if you take, like, say, for instance, the 757, 200, which seats 224 passengers, and the Dash 300 that seats, I think that's maximum certified is 295, I think, on the 300 series. So the MAX 10 kind of almost fills the 757 gap, I suppose, if you look at it like that.
Yeah. So it's good news for the Boeing 737 MAX, just not the MAX that everybody's talking about, essentially.
Yeah, I honestly, I really, don't you think that there's a little possibility that when this all gets sorted, that they'll change the name.
Do you think?
Yeah, I just have this, I don't know, because of the whole thing surrounded by the MAX name, everyone knows this, the MAX, blah, blah, blah. I just think they're going to rebrand it.
You reckon?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm a bit sceptical, I've got to be honest. I think, the trouble is because everybody, also people aren't stupid, they won't get fooled by it.
True. Not av geeks anyway.
No, quite.
So Armando is up next with
Yep.
this next story. So this one is on the airlinerwatch.com website.
Hey guys, this short article from Airliner Watch. An Air Canada Bombardier CRJ 900 was forced to return to the San Francisco International Airport on March 1st. That was shortly after takeoff due to smoke in the cockpit and smoke in a lavatory. The flight number 8839 from the airline's subsidiary, Air Canada Express, took off from San Francisco International Airport for Vancouver on March 1st. Shortly after takeoff, the flight crew noticed smoke in the cockpit, and the cabin crew also reported smoke in one of the lavatories. The Air Canada flight returned to the San Francisco International Airport and landed safely. Obviously, emergency crews were ready on the runway to intervene when the plane landed. They reported 71 passengers on board, which were quickly evacuated via the emergency exits. And some of the passengers were also evacuated from the aircraft using the wing exits, and they jumped to the ground. I think there's some videos out there for that. So far, no injuries reported. Passengers were reported to the terminal, and of course, the FAA is investigating.
Thanks for that, Armando. And we do miss him.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be back soon, by the way, live.
He'll be back soon, live. Yeah.
No, I think it's 2 weeks' time. I think he'll be back live with us. Yeah, so looking forward.
Do you know, I was looking at the Aviation Herald website this week, and because I like to have a look on there every day, and I have the app on my phone as well. But I was looking on there this week, and I forget, I did make a note at home of how many, but there's quite a few instances of smoke incidents on the CRJ 900. I don't know whether that's whether people like having a cigarette on the aircraft, but
oh right,
but yeah,
in this day and age,
but yeah, smoke from the lavatories as well. It's I don't know, Nev. It's one of these things we see quite a bit on the Aviation Herald, not just with the CRJ, but there's also quite. If you look on the first kind of page on the Aviation Herald site, there's quite a few aircraft, and a lot of them as well, the A320s as well, that are having these kind of smoke incidents, Nev.
Yes, there are, aren't there? And but of course, the other thing is that people do occasionally mistake it for air conditioning or condensation as well in the cabin area. I've certainly been on a number of A320s where it's been warm outside, and the air ducting above the where the baggage holders are, you do get a lot of condensation coming out there. But nonetheless, these are genuine smoke events by the sounds of things, not condensation or anything like that. So interesting.
So moving on to the next story. This one is on the MiamiHerald.com. I'd love to go to Miami. I will do one day.
Right.
And this one is regarding an airline.
Is that where Rick's from?
Oh, no. Well, yes, technically, I suppose, yes. Hence the name. And this is
right into that.
This is an airline that I shall hopefully be flying on in June if I'm, still not coronafied up. This headline is: American Airlines mechanic sentenced to 3 years for tampering with plane in Miami. So an American Airlines mechanic convicted of sabotaging a navigation system on a Miami flight with 150 passengers on board was sentenced to 3 years in prison on Wednesday after a legal debate over whether he recklessly or intentionally endangered the safety of the aircraft. Abdul Mahid Maruf Ahmed Alani, this is why you're going with this story, isn't it?
I 60, have nothing to comment on.
Who pleaded guilty in December to tampering with aircraft before takeoff last summer at Miami International Airport, received the benefit of a reckless finding by U.S. District Judge Marcia Cook. It was based on an agreement between his defense attorney and federal prosecutors. Had the judge found that his tampering with the plane's guidance system was intended to bring it down, Alani could have been sent to prison for 2 to 3 years' time longer under federal sentencing guidelines. In the end, however, Cook refused to grant the defendant's request for a 2.5 years in prison, saying his tampering, despite a backup in place, might have caused some unfortunate calamity. The judge noted that even the mechanic told the federal investigators that he wouldn't have wanted his family to be on the plane after he obstructed one of the aircraft's 2 air data module systems with a piece of foam-like material. That in turn triggered an error alert on the runway before takeoff so the pilot could return the aircraft to the gate for maintenance. Alani's defense attorney, Jonathan Meltz, told the judge that his intent was not to bring harm to the passengers, but rather to cause flight delay or cancellation so that he could obtain overtime pay during maintenance work on the aircraft. The intent of Mr. Alani was solely financial, Meltz said. Assistant U.S. Attorney Randy Hummel reinforced the point by saying that clearly Alani intended to tamper with the aircraft, the guidance system, but it was not to cause it to crash after takeoff. Well, that's Nice of them. Cook also questioned the prosecutor on whether Alani's case involved any connection to terrorism. The judge asked Hummel why she received an email from him or from someone without disclosing details, suggesting that Alani's actions were motivated by terrorism. Hummel pointed out that after his arrest in September, FBI agents found very disturbing videos of the terrorist group ISIS on his smartphone, and they proved inconclusive. The story does go on slightly here, but he certainly, I think he's going to wish he didn't do that, because 3 years in prison at the age of 60 is never going to be a great thing to be doing at that age at all.
I just can't get my head round why somebody would do something.
If you had
like
a good
that.
job, good pay, with a good airline.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you've got a grievance with whoever it is that you're working for, you know, interfering with something like that with potentially catastrophic results. I mean, I just can't. You know, we've all been angry at some point with, you know, the people we work for or work with or whatever. I mean, it's just like...
In a previous job, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just like, I just can't get my head round it.
It says here on the story that on average he made $9,400 a month as an American airlines mechanic.
That's just outrageous.
That's not bad. That's not a bad monthly. What's that? $9,400. What's that in English, Nev? That must be.
Well, it's probably about 7,500, probably, isn't it?
Could you manage on that a month, Matt?
Oh, a month? Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You wouldn't want to annoy your employer then.
No,
if
but I
wouldn't
wouldn't want to do it by sort of, you know, unscrupulous means that you know, could be potentially putting many lives at risk. I mean, that's not okay.
Blimey, I think I'm going to move to the States and get a mechanic's job if that's the pay they're on.
Right, okay, yes.
Blimey.
Yes, all right, we'll move. While Carlos is contemplating his future, I will I will take the next story. This is on...
No, Matt, this story has kind of relevance to our show title screen.
It certainly does, yes, absolutely. So this is on the Evening Standard, website of the year, apparently, according to this. Anyway,
nice.
Frankfurt airport delays. Flights at busy German hub grounded after drones spotted in the area. So here we go again. Flights at one of Europe's busiest airports were... You're right there. Were grounded for more than an hour after a drone was spotted in the area. Planes at Frankfurt airport in Western Germany could not take off or land due to the sighting. Police said on Twitter that they are investigating the incident and that delays are likely. The problem began at 11:20 local time, 10:20 GMT, and lasted for almost 2 hours. A spokesman for the airport told The Standard, "We've been dealing with the incident since 11:20 a.m. local time. We had a drone sighting in the vicinity of the airport. The use of the runways has been suspended by air traffic controllers, and authorities are working to resolve the situation." A similar situation occurred in May last year when the runways were closed for nearly an hour following a drone sighting. And of course, who can forget, was it last Christmas, was it, where Gatwick was all shut down due to repeated drone sightings? Now,
were you there with yours?
No.
Okay.
Although, actually, as you've mentioned my drone, I should just stress...
You haven't crashed it, have you?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm fully registered.
Oh, good.
I'll have you know.
Good.
I am fully registered. I've been a good boy. I did my little CAA exam. And
you got your app, haven't
And the
you?
questions were out of 20. How many did I get right?
1.
Oh, well, no, because I wouldn't have passed, so I wouldn't have the stickers if I'd done that. I got 20 out of 20, I'll have you know. It would appear that having done this show has finally been of some use to me. It's been fantastic.
That's the news I wanted to hear.
So genuinely, long story short, basically, if you have a drone and it weighs 250 grams or more, and that has to include the add-ons and accessories, by the way. So if it's got a camera, you must weigh it with the camera on, and also if you've got the battery, that must be in it as well. 250.
Alfie's batteries.
Very excited about that. So 250 grams or more, you need to register your drone. Now, actually, without my battery in, my drone was 300 grams, so I very much needed to do it. And to register your drone, it is honestly, it's a really simple. As long as you read all the bump, it's a very simple exam to do. You need to go to register-drones.caa.co.uk. That's register-drones.caa.co.uk. And anybody who knows me will know that if I can pass it, then anybody can pass it. Really, it is ever so simple. But it's great. I feel quite.
Even Alfie can pass it by the sounds of it.
Absolutely, yes. He's excited. He's just passed his test now.
That's good.
Off, yeah.
So Frankfurt Airport, Mr. Bones, is that one you have frequented in your times?
Yes, not in recent years. I think I've probably flown there once or twice. Normally a connecting flight to go somewhere else, or to the Frankfurt Messe, which is the Congress Centre and Exhibition Hall there. But it's a huge airport these days, and of course, drone disruption anywhere is bad, but certainly somewhere like Frankfurt, that just backs everything up very quickly, I would imagine.
Yes, I can imagine. Well, it's a busy old hub, isn't it? It'd be a bit like sort of if something like that happened at, sort of like Schiphol or something like that. I mean, it'd just be, the knock-on to everyone would be horrendous, wouldn't it? Yeah.
So the next story, Nev, for you, amused me highly, not just because of the story, but because of the brand involved.
I thought you might
say well, that. Just before you get too clever with that, could I just point out that I don't believe that the screen on the MacBook Pro is actually manufactured by Apple, but we'll leave that to one side.
Okay, indeed.
It's on the sun.co.uk, everybody's favourite aviation site, of course. It says that a passenger was left fuming when his Apple MacBook Pro was destroyed during a flight after the person in front reclined their seat. Pat Cassidy was flying with Delta from Austin to Los Angeles when his computer was crushed by the seat going back onto it. He wrote on Twitter, Delta, small note for the suggestion box. Maybe have a little warning sign or some way to prevent my laptop from being destroyed when the person in front of me reclines their seat. A picture of his laptop shows the screen no longer working, with half of it black and the rest of it broken and blurred.
I mean, it is sort of working.
Yes, I would dispute that it's not working. It is still working. It's not working in an optimal sense.
No, indeed, yeah.
But
it's an unusual resolution. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, Pat from Texas says that the crew on board were of no help. Also, this is more of a critique than a suggestion. I really appreciate that your flight attendant came over to tell me that the passenger in front of me needs to be able to recline, and then asked him if he was okay, as if your seat hadn't just ruined my livelihood. Social media users were conflicted, with some saying that the person in front was wrong. Someone wrote, nobody should allow to recline on an airplane. It only causes issues. Another person added, who are these folk reclining instantly at maximum velocity? Pat also wasn't the first to happen to. Twitter user Judd Mackerel shared his own cracked screen after he had the same problem. He said, the person in front of me reclined and my MacBook Pro screen got caught in the angle.
I'm going to ask Nev to stop there before he has some kind of actual meltdown, because I can see him getting more and more cross as this story progresses.
It's just a bit of etiquette, really, isn't it?
It is,
all you got to do is just turn around and say to the person, are you okay if I put my seat back a little bit?
I mean, actually, the picture, I'll just pop it up again, look. I mean, it's incredibly bad luck in the fact that it's basically just lodged itself underneath the tray table bit as he's reclined his seat. I mean, it is the worst luck ever. I mean, I bet you couldn't do that again if you tried. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things. I mean, it's just... I feel sorry for the guy who's just lost his laptop. I think it's a slight overreaction that he's entirely lost his livelihood. That's a load of rubbish, because the data is still on the hard drive. So, there's an inconvenience.
Can you replace the screen easy enough on those?
On a MacBook, easy as pie. In fact, to be fair, in most cases, once you've made an appointment with like the Genius Bar or whatever, they'll do it on site. I mean, they'll do it there and then. So it's it's an inconvenience, and I don't know where you'd stand as far as insurance and stuff is concerned with something like that. I mean, I guess depends on what sort of house insurance.
Well, if it was my livelihood, and like when I'm taking my video gear with me, I insure it
separately.
Apart from the usual sort of theft and damage things. Other things as well. So in public liability, that kind of stuff. So if it falls on somebody's head, then it's covered. It's one of those very unfortunate things, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? There's I mean, the passenger didn't do anything wrong by reclining their seat, but
no.
Actually, Owen in the chat room says, as a passenger, I love to recline.
Right. Okay.
But as crew, I hate the fact that seats recline.
Right, okay.
There's
slightly conflicting stories there. I don't know
Yeah.
quite what to do that. Shall we move on to the soothing, dulcet tones of the legend that is Armando? And he's talking about Boeing, who are hiring in readiness for the MAX returning, which is exciting.
This story is from Airliner Watch, and Boeing expects to resume 737 MAX production by mid-year if regulators approve the changes made on that aircraft. So the manufacturer now plans to hire more workers for its 737 MAX program to fulfill its delivery commitments for the customers. So on December 13th of 2019, Boeing welcomed 115 new mechanics and assembly line workers to the Pacific Northwest manufacturing hub. Another 122 new employees started on January 10th and 143 the week after that, while only 31 machinists left the company in that same month. So all told, union figures show that Boeing has hired about 730 new workers. Boeing executives currently plan to restart the factory in the next couple months on the expectation that somewhere around mid-year, regulators will lift the flight ban that they imposed on the MAX in early 2019 following those two crashes. So if Boeing's timetable proves a little bit too optimistic, as its earlier predictions have, these costs are going to start piling up, not just from the new hires, but also from the other 3,000 MAX assembly workers that the company has kept on payroll since shutting down the production. To make matters worse, the push to ramp output back up comes just as concern is mounting that the coronavirus will curb air travel and dissuade airlines from taking the planes that they've already ordered, let alone buying new ones. So obviously Boeing stock was hit hard in last week's global equity sell-off, sinking about 17%. It's now down 37% over the past year. Once Boeing starts to emerge from the MAX crisis, it will need these extra employees to mount a commercial comeback for the plane, both in the factory and in the parking lots where the company and many airlines have stored about 800 of these aircraft. So without these new workers, labor shortages could completely disrupt Boeing's production and enable Airbus to widen its lead in the crucial market for single-aisle jets. There are already signs that some of Boeing's suppliers are preparing to snap out of their hibernation. One company, Spirit AeroSystems, which jettisoned 3,200 jobs because of the production pause, said last week that it would resume making 737 MAX fuselages for Boeing this month. Now, in the middle of March, with the MAX's grounding hitting the one-year mark, Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun is expected to speak before suppliers. Uncertainty, financial strain are starting to pile up at many of the part makers, posing yet another risk to Boeing. So while they are spending heavily in anticipation of a MAX comeback, it is far from certain when or whether the strategy is going to pay off. Boeing, who is based in Chicago, they projected in January that it will absorb around $4 billion in abnormal costs related to the production halt primarily in 2020. That's on top of the $14.6 billion in other MAX costs outlined already by the company. So around 200 of the machinists that were hired by Boeing since December, they've been assigned to the 737 MAX program, according to a company release. More of the newcomers may be needed when Boeing starts its 737 factory back up and the thousands of workers who have been lent to other programs go back onto the MAX line. So the recent MAX hires are primarily tending to newly built planes that Boeing can't deliver until the grounding ends. The parked 737 MAXs, which are completely taped up against the elements in storage lots in Texas and California, as well as Seattle and Eastern Washington Airport in Moses Lake, they represent about $20 billion worth of inventory for Boeing. Now, inside the factory, the 737 factory in Renton, the east and west final assembly lines have been empty since Boeing rolled out the last MAX in January. There are still aircraft on the center of the line, completely frozen in place since production was shut
down.
Shut down.
So I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that. Obviously, cut a bit short. Yeah, I mean, it's this is the issue, isn't it? They've been on the ground for so long. Now,
There's a lot of these aircraft parked up. Yeah,
it's going to be an insane operation to get them. Well, even once they've been given the green light, I mean, it's just going to be mad, isn't it? The work required to get them back in. It's going
to take a huge amount of time for all these aircraft to get back, checked, rechecked, back on the line and working for airlines. But also, once they're all checked, there's going to be this massive backlog of orders for new aircraft that they're going to have to hurry up, rush and build
and get
put
them out.
And
Yeah.
get them
out. I don't know if the word rush is
well,
a
not
good
rush.
idea.
No, not rush.
I don't think it'll be rushing
stuff
anything.
Gets left in things then when they rush. But there is going to be a mass. We could see Boeing going from sort of down to back up to, the biggest again. But
I don't know,
Mr. Barnes.
Well, yes, trying to bring all these aircraft back into life with all, the firmware updates, software updates, and, even with these aircraft parked up for extended periods of time, that's never a good thing for aircraft, is it? In my limited experience, they are best served when they are being used day in and day out, but being parked up with nothing going on effectively, that takes a lot of getting back into life, and also some testing as well, of course. It's not just, charging the battery up and off you go. I mean, there's an awful lot of testing on an individual aircraft basis, I would have thought, in order for those to get back into the air.
Yeah, this is very
to see how fast they can do the turnaround.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to pop back to the chat room if that's okay with everyone, because they've been having quite a discussion about the reclining of seats, obviously, which was on our previous story, it's been an interesting sort of. Mike, the legend that is the main man, obviously just said just because you decline to recline, shouldn't you? Just because you decline to recline, shouldn't allow others to be inclined.
There's a lot of declining there.
There is indeed, absolutely. It's like Owen was saying when he was flying on Harpjet, I didn't really care whether or not the seat reclined. But long haul is a totally different story. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that's true, isn't it? With a long haul flight, you do very much need to sort of kick back and chill, don't you? Absolutely.
Yeah. If you can't afford the £50 million seats where the seat's fully flat, it's nice that you can at least recline 3 millimeters.
Yeah, there is that. Yes, it's Jennifer, the lovely Jenny in Rome, says I was on an Alitalia flight where the seats reclined just a little. It was very comfortable. You said that I was on a TU-134 flight in 1985 where all the seats reclined, just not backwards. You need to explain that.
that was actually going back. I mean, that was a flight to Yugoslavia, Dubrovnik,
right?
Back in 1985 when I was a lot younger than I am now.
Right,
on a TU-134A with Aviogenics, an airline which I think is still going. I'm not quite sure. And when we landed in Yugoslavia, the pilot braked so hard that we all obviously went forward.
Right, okay.
And normally you'd expect the seat to stay upright when you lean forward.
Right.
But all the seats collapsed forward.
Did they?
All the seats.
Oh, wow.
And you kind of had to I still remember as a child having to push my seat back into the upright position from the forward.
Wow, okay. I mean, it's interestingly enough, Stephen Howland is saying that he's flown long haul many times but has never actually felt the need. He thinks that you lose legroom if you recline, which is probably why he wouldn't recline. It would why? Well, yeah, and Stuart Hunt, he's saying actually that why give the option to recline if you
don't use it
if you're not going to use it. I mean, now Nev, obviously, you've perhaps been lucky enough to do a little more business class flying than most humans. Do
the short haul seats on BA's 320s recline, Nev?
They do, but
Okay.
of course they're packing them in more now. They've got these new Recaro seats in some of them where for the larger gentlemen such as myself, it's not quite as comfortable as it used to be, shall we say? Although maybe that's my fault for putting on too much weight. But I think that that they are certainly jamming them in a bit now, and obviously the short haul sectors, well, anything up to, what is it, 4.5 hours probably is considered a short haul with BA, isn't it? The flights down to the Canary Islands and places like that. But yeah, they do recline. But the problem is that you do run out of space fairly quickly behind. So if one person reclines, almost everybody has to, especially if they got their laptop out or iPad or something like that.
Stephen Howland in the chat room makes a good point, and we talked about this, I think, last year. You can buy pegs that, if put in the right place, stop the person in front reclining. I remember that story. Do you remember that story now, for those plastic pegs you could shove in someone's seat?
Maybe that's an opportunity for some Amazon purchasing.
Yes, absolutely.
On.
Yes, do please make sure you use our link on the website. It's www.planetalkinguk.com. Click on that link.
Knee defenders. Manchester says knee defenders.
Avio Gen X is still not operating. It ceased in 2015. Apparently,
did it?
By the way, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Oh.
Yes, the producer's just been in touch.
Okay, thank you, producer.
Absolutely. Yes, so that's the trouble, isn't it? We've got somebody who's fact checking us as we go now.
Thanks.
Very tense. Very tense. Yeah.
Oh dear, if I only had some pictures still, that'd have been so good.
You had some what?
If I only had pictures still from
Of
those times of that.
Oh, I
aircraft,
see.
that'd be
I wasn't
quite
sure where
cool.
you were going with that. I thought you were trying to find some dirt on our producer.
I think I can vaguely remember that back in that particular day, that the camera that I had as a child then was one of those, with the plastic and you drop the film in. There were two rolls each end.
Was it a
110?
Yeah.
A
The
110?
110.
110.
Yeah. I remember those. Gosh,
God, blimey.
those were the days.
Showing my age now. Anyway,
Yes.
Moving on swiftly to
Yes.
the next story, which is on simpleflying.com. And this is a story we covered last August, actually. I remember this one. We had this in the news. And the headline, Damaged Emirates Airbus A380 makes first flight in half a year. So this last weekend, an A380 owned by Emirates that was damaged in August last year made its first test flight since the incident. The Super Jumbo fell on its nose last summer. I remember those pictures during routine maintenance at its operator's hangar at Dubai International Airport. Airbus has since repaired the jet ahead of its testing, and on the 22nd of August last year, the front wheel of the A380 completely collapsed. This left a plane with a torn fuselage along with structural damage. Reportedly, it slipped off a hydraulic jack, which crushed its nose gear and doors. Thankfully, there were no injuries to anyone when the incident took place. However, there would have been some expensive repairs made ahead of last weekend's testing. Following the repairs, the aircraft, registration Alpha 6 Echo Oscar Papa, took flight from Dubai on the afternoon of February the 29th, according to AirNav. Flight EK2552 departed the airport at 14:20. The jet circled around the coast of the Persian Gulf, peaking at an altitude of 43,000 feet before making a trip inland past Abu Dhabi. The aircraft then went back over the sea before heading back to its base in Dubai, and after nearly 3.5 hours in the air, the A380 landed at Dubai at quarter to six, I should say, at local time. So before the initial incident last year, the operation at this unit was operated service at the time from Bangkok to Dubai in August, and it originally arrived with Emirates in November 2015, just under 4 years before it became damaged. The carrier maintains a considerable amount of 380s within its fleet, according to plane spotters. The Dubai-based airline currently holds an inventory of 115 of the double-decker wide-bodied aircraft. The aircraft type was introduced in October 2007, obviously, as we know, with Singapore. And since its introduction into service, 242 of the planes have been built. But however, as we know, the A380 production line is no more. And we covered a story a few weeks back. The last final assembly fuselage.
The wings, wasn't it? I think we were watching, reading, But
the pictures, obviously, there's some pictures on with this story as well. Matt will have the links in the show notes to the pictures. But we did run the picture. I remember this picture last year of this kind of 380 doing a bow, a kind of bow down, and it looks
that's
slightly damaged. Slightly damaged.
Yeah, it's yes. I've finally got it.
But I'd imagine that Emirates probably absorbed this aircraft not being flying quite easily, considering the amount of these aircraft that they have in their fleet.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
it does look a bit.
It's damaged, certainly.
Damaged, yeah.
It's
cool. I mean, it's obviously going to be a lot easier for the passengers to get in and out of the front door there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm not sure that's the, I'm not sure it's safe necessarily to do it that way.
But obviously, the tests they've done, you can see they've done obviously the tests flying at altitude, at 43,000 feet, and obviously the pressurization tests and everything. So it's good to see these aircraft back in service. So
yes,
well done to those Airbus.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the next story now, and this one's actually with Nev for a change, mainly because there's pictures that I need to pop up. So and that's in the show notes, as I'm sure you've seen, Nev.
Yes, very much.
Just a bit of an update.
Yeah, this is we've taken some stories from about Aer Lingus from several sources, which include Simple Flying, the Aer Lingus Media Centre, Mercado, and Eventos.com, amongst others. And it's about the airline taking delivery of Airbus's final A330-300 CEO. Dublin-based national flag carrier of Ireland, Aer Lingus has taken delivery of Airbus's last ever A330-300. Manufacturing serial number 1951 is the number of the aircraft, and it's the last CEO or current engine option A330 that Airbus will build. This brings to an end the 26-year production of the original A330-300, which first entered service with Air Antair in January 1994. Airbus will now exclusively build the NEO, or new engine option version, of the A330-300. Sporting the Irish Airlines new livery and logo, the aircraft, registered as Echo India November, took off from Toulouse on Friday afternoon, heading for Dublin International Airport. It brings Aer Lingus's total number of A330s to 11. The new livery is part of a brand redesign launched in January of last year. Along with the new livery, there was a website overhaul and most recently an update of the cabin crew and frontline staff uniforms. Guests flying with Aer Lingus in the coming months can expect to still see iconic green, now a new Kenmare green, as well as a greater inclusion of navy entitled Midnight throughout. In all, 25 garments have been designed, giving crew and ground staff a greater variety of styles from which to choose. Notable changes to the uniform include the addition of trouser and dress options, new jacket and coat designs for male crew, and easy care shirts and blouses for the convenience of all crew. For added comfort, garment materials have a level of stretch and are designed to fit and flatter all body shapes and sizes. I think I might be interested.
I think we should pop them an email, Nave. What do you reckon?
Yes. This was all created by Irish fashion designer Louise Kennedy. The new look reflects Aer Lingus' status as a modern international airline with a proud Irish heritage, excuse me, and is the final stage in the airline's brand refresh. The uniform was last updated 22 years ago in 1998, also designed by Louise Kennedy. Well, I hope they've dry cleaned them since then. That's all I can say.
Well, quite, yes.
It's good to see the airline doing well, and good to see.
Weirdly, it's an airline that we don't see a great deal of over here, but I mean, certainly in Ireland, I mean, it's a huge airline. I mean, it's a very popular airline as well.
It's one of the things I said on the story when we were doing, putting the show notes together and stuff. It's one of those islands, those airlines, it kind of gets lost. Because whenever anyone thinks of an Irish airline, they immediately think of Ryanair. Yeah. So
I think if you reverse the tables actually, and you're say, let's say Galway as an example, if you sat there, I mean, it's probably one of those where you're as likely to think about Aer Lingus as you are Ryanair. I think it's just that here it's not something that it's not regular routes, if you like, coming out of London, I guess, and we're
one of the useful things certainly about going to the US with Aer Lingus is if you get a flight over to Dublin or Shannon, you can actually clear US customs there rather than in the US themselves. So you arrive as a domestic flight, and that can save an awful lot of time.
Oh, especially when you hear the horror stories of people like either at Newark or JFK, the ability to have essentially cleared customs and all that kind of thing before you leave Ireland, which by definition, unfortunately, is a smaller airport. You know, I mean, it's just brilliant, isn't it? It's a great idea.
It's a great idea. It saves a lot of time and hassle. Yeah. I've done a little bit of checking on the airline because I do like to do a little bit of homework on these particular things.
Brace yourselves, everyone.
And it's kind of one of those pricings. But I did have a look just to see a quick fair comparison kind of thing between the likes of, say, Aer Lingus and some of the bigger carriers like American Airlines and Delta and BA. And actually, I was quite surprised, to be fair, because on just a normal economy flight from London Heathrow to JFK, say, return flights for me and Matt to go out this weekend. Sorry, Nev, you're going to have to stay in the UK. But for me and Matt,
Nev, he's better company than me, to be fair.
Nev wouldn't travel in economy, so that's not going to happen.
Okay,
but anyway, for me and Matt to travel to JFK from London Heathrow. What
makes you think I want to fly in bloody
economy?
Anyway, sorry.
But actually, the price includes the price I'm just about to say includes meals and 23 kilos of checked luggage, plus your 10 kilos of hand luggage. But it came in just under £2,000 for two people, so it's £1,000 each, which is a lot of bloody money. But when you compare it to the other big airlines as well, they're all about the same. So they're no more expensive and no more cheaper.
No, and I've just been corrected by our producer, by the way, as well. Apparently there are a ridiculous amount of flights between London and Dublin, so goes to show what little I know. Sorry about that. Close to 35 flights a day each way, apparently, if you include some of the Aer Lingus regional flights. So I'll shut up talking now.
Oh, dear me.
Yes. So the staff, it's terrible, isn't it?
The next story, Matt, is.
Is it my turn?
Is it? It's one of those airlines that I've never travelled on, but would love to at some point in my life.
Okay, right. So this is on the travelguide.com. Sorry, it's the Jakarta Post.
Jakarta Post
coming from, but it's the travel guide section that we're reading from, and the headline is Singapore Airlines chief senior staff take pay cut as air travel demand drops. Obviously, so we're sort of skirting around that coronavirus thing again. Nev's left his studio.
Nev's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Singapore Airlines SIA is cutting pay for management staff as the global coronavirus outbreak continues to hit demand for air travel. In a note to staff Friday afternoon, Chief Executive, I'm not even going to attempt to say that because I'll offend so many people. Anyway, the Chief Executive of said airline said, my management team will take the lead. I think it's Go Chu Pong said. Go Chu Pong. I said my management team will take the lead. From the 1st of March, his pay will be cut by 15%. Two executive vice presidents will take a 12% cut, and senior vice presidents and a 10% will take a 10% cut. The Straits Times found out. Other affected staff will take a 7% or 5% cut. A voluntary no-pay leave scheme will be offered to staff, including cabin crew and pilots. Go said that those who opt for this can be assured that their jobs will be there upon their return. The new measures are part of broader cost-cutting initiatives, including deferring some capital expenditure that the airline is rolling out to deal with a business turndown that has hit the global aviation industry. The SIA group, comprising the premium parent airline Silk Air and budget carrier Scoot, has temporarily suspended more than 3,000 return flights from this month to the end of May following the outbreak in order to mitigate the impact of the significant drop in demand. This accounts for 9.9% of the group's scheduled flights until May. Scoot is also looking at similar manpower cost reduction measures, a spokesperson said. Go said in his note, we will continue to be proactive in implementing measures to meet the evolving challenges. Tough decisions will be needed along the way. Management will take the lead, and all of us must be prepared to make sacrifices. Our priority is to save jobs. Earlier in the week, SIA had updated staff on the significant impact of the COVID-19 outbreak on the SIA group and the need to be nimble and flexible in addressing the rapid decline in air travel. I mean, the story goes on, but I mean, we sort of get the drop. I mean, do you think if this is? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I in lots of ways, I'm a little bit with Nev here, where I do feel people are panic overreacting to. To be honest with you, something, it is clearly a very infectious disease, but however, it's no more of risk, if you like, than actual flu. At the moment, and certainly the death toll involving flu is much bigger than the COVID-19 outbreak. I mean, that obviously could change. I mean, we're in a sort of slightly unknown territory here, but I mean, do you think more and more airlines are likely to do this, Nev, where they're sort of asking staff to sort of, if you say, to take unpaid leave, if you like, to ease their financial woes and essentially, I suppose, try and prevent another sort of airline going bust?
Yes, it's very difficult to say, isn't it? Of course, and all this has come at a very what is traditionally a quieter time for the airline industry. So that the busy time tends to be, April through to October. And we know one of our pilot friends, we know, he's won't be working for a few months because he's been asked to just stand down because of the lack of requirement. And British Airways and others are reducing flight numbers as well. I have to say, and I am not medically qualified in any respect, but we've just got to get a grip of this. I don't mean in what the governments are doing around the world, and obviously in the Far East there's some distinct difficulties, and in Italy as well. But from a domestic point of view, what on earth are people doing buying, bulk toilet rolls?
Yeah.
Could I just point
crazy,
out, I think
they
probably misunderstood the symptoms if that's what they're doing.
Yes, that's one way of yes.
Yeah. All this hand sanitizer, buying it by the bucket load from Amazon, and if you do buy it from Amazon, do
please use our link? Yeah, absolutely.
But honestly, it's just a massive exaggeration. And of course, the trouble is you've got all this social media business pinging away on your phone. There's a BBC News or a Sky News alert. Oh, now it's 166 people infected with the virus. Really? Well, I don't want to be unkind.
Go on, Nev. Come on.
Have it. But I think we've just got to kind of understand that it's basically a nasty strain of flu, which is perhaps more infectious than regular flu, and people have just got to take some precautions. And I think it's as simple as that. And if you've got underlying conditions, or you're elderly or very young, or you've got respiratory problems, then clearly you've got to take some sensible precautions. But this is not World War II and rationing. But I tell you what, if people don't just calm it down a bit, we're going to have all sorts of supply problems if we're not careful. So I think just a sensible approach in the various domestic markets. I mean, do you remember when there was what was termed the fuel crisis and the fuel shortage? I can't remember what year it was, but there was queues at the filling stations, completely unnecessary, and there was plenty to go around. And the same with medical supplies and food in this situation. It's I think we've just got to turn it all down a bit because there's clearly not enough
getting
news
angry.
The news outlets are just absolutely full of it.
Absolutely.
I'm shocked they're using the correct pictures in the news stories. I thought they'd put a picture of a toilet or something on the. So obviously people are buying loads of toilet roll. They must have been using pictures of toilets on the coronavirus thing.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I was looking. While you were talking about Singapore on that story.
Yes.
I was just looking.
Were you distracted by pretty aviation-related pictures?
I was looking. Well,
right.
I just had this urge to go on Singapore Airlines website and look at their first class and their A380 suites products. Honestly, Nev, you've got to take a look at these because the A380 suite with Singapore Airlines.
Can I use the word aviation porn?
There's
a
double bed with a reclining sofa chair. and a 32-inch touchscreen high-def TV.
Suits you, sir.
I mean, Matt, can you imagine sitting in that chair, doing your editing for the show?
Oh, well, yes, absolutely. I mean, if you're paying, I'm up for anything.
I dread to think how much a return flight from here to Singapore with in the suite would cost. But
okay, I'm surprised you haven't looked it up. Actually, just
I think I will have to. Yeah,
absolutely.
Does look nice though.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we're going to move on to
up next. It's Armando who's back again with another little piece about certain things.
We're going back to that again.
Subject,
Nev, you might want to go and get a cup of tea or something. It's coronavirus time.
Hey guys, as of this recording, airlines in the Asia Pacific area could suffer a potential 13% full year loss in passenger demand as a result of the coronavirus outbreak. That's according to the latest analysis from the International Air Transport Association, or IATA, which has revised its forecast figures for the region from an expected 4.8% growth increase to an 8.2% full-year contraction compared to 2019. Such a scenario would result in around $27.8 billion revenue loss for those Asian Pacific carriers in the year 2020. So the majority of that would be carried by airlines registered in China, with around $12.8 billion lost in that domestic market alone. IATA predicts that in the same instance, carriers outside Asia Pacific would lose around $1.5 billion in revenue if the fall in demand is limited to markets linked to China. So that would bring the total global lost revenue to $29.3 billion. And that represents a 4.7% hit to the global demand. According to IATA, they say these are challenging times for global air transport industry. Stopping the spread of the virus is the top priority, said Alexandre Dujuniac. He's the Director General and CEO of IATA. Airlines are following the guidance of the World Health Organization and other public health authorities to keep passengers safe. The world is interconnected, and this virus has to be contained. The sharp downturn in demand as a result of COVID-19 will have a financial impact on the airlines, severe for those particularly exposed to the China market. He goes on to say that they estimate that global traffic will be reduced by 4.7% by the virus, which could more than offset the growth they had previously forecast. Airlines, according to him, are making difficult decisions to cut capacity, and in some cases routes. Lower fuel costs will help offset some of the lost revenue, but this is shaping up to be a pretty tough year for the airlines.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, however you dress it up, whatever your opinion is of essentially what's going on, it is more pressure on airlines that really can't afford it at the moment. I think there's a lot to be said for that. This is probably the last time we'll mention the COVID-19, just because.
Oh, please.
But what I will just say, hello, Nev's wearing gloves. I don't know what's going on. We'll come back to that in a minute. But what I just wanted to read out what Dr. Steph actually had said in the chat room, which I think is important if you're a little bit unsure about COVID-19, or perhaps you're, because there is the biggest thing for me on this is it's actually the lack of information, isn't it? It's just everybody's having to there's no definitive source, if you like, as to what to expect or what to do, essentially, in this case. But anyway, Dr. Steph has said that, long story short, basically it's not good if you're old or have multiple medical problems. But for the average person under the age of 60, just practice basic hygiene. And actually here in the UK, we've had that 20-second rule, haven't we, that they've started introducing, where you need to wash your hands for 20 seconds, with soap. It doesn't have to be an antibac or anything like that. Just proper soap is all that's required to kill said bug. And not to say that the virus won't make you sick, but new data from South Korea, which is testing lots of people, suggests the fatality rate is closer to 0.56%, not 2 to 3% as previously published. It's just, as I say, it is, and I still maintain, what I was saying earlier, essentially, that, this is essentially just a strain of flu that we're experiencing year in, year out, aren't we? It's just it does seem to be a highly contagious flu. I mean, you don't have to be in contact with it for very long at all, I think, for it to give you issues. But
it's all about the hygiene.
It is all about, practice basic hygiene, wash your hands for 20 seconds. And, at the end of the day, there is... I think it is going to get worse before it gets better. But, it is, at the end of the day, no different to flu, which, we're sort of more or less used to dealing with here, especially in the UK.
So, James,
I was just going to say just one thing.
Yes, do.
Not aviation related, but coronavirus related. But this is just an example of how things can get seriously out of control. On the BBC website, just now, it says that Indian chicken sales plummet amid misinformation. And basically it says that there's been messages on social media platforms that we started circulating, warning people not to eat chicken, falsely claiming that chickens carry the new coronavirus and could pass it on to humans. And then Indian authorities have repeatedly said there is no scientific evidence to the claims. In fact, ministers have eaten roast chicken during public events to show that the birds are virus-free. So my point about social media misinformation leading to exaggeration and panic, there it is right there, and I just think it's absolutely ridiculous.
It is, absolutely. I should just say, actually, I've been corrected by the good doctor who says that it produces a flu-like illness, but it is definitely distinct from the flu. So there we are. So apologies for that.
Doctors in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. No, well, this is why we're here. Yeah, so a flu vaccine will not protect you from coronavirus, but please still get your flu vaccine, she's saying. So there we are. Good girl. That's it. Yes, thanks for that, Steph. Sorry.
Yeah. Next week, sexual hygiene and how to,
right. Okay.
Seems to be the latest thing.
We'll move on. Interestingly enough, Jenny in Rome is saying that Ryanair have cancelled her flights into the UK, which is interesting.
Oh, well, we'll rent a 172 and come and get you, Jenny. Don't worry.
Right. Okay. Lovely.
There'll be more comfort anyway.
Hey.
So going back to Singapore Airlines, Nev, I've managed to get you a flight with Singapore Airlines flying out this weekend to Singapore.
Thank you.
Obviously in the suite, the Singapore
on the
suite.
380.
Yeah, on the 380. We've just got to find the £8,200 to pay for the ticket.
How much?
So.
Right. Okay. And how short are we in the Patreon fund?
8,100.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. All right.
But yes. Yeah. Just a tad of £8,000, Nev, will get you that return flight to Singapore this weekend.
Do you know
in the suite?
We've got to do it once somehow. We've got to do it once. We need to send one of you two. I mean, there's no point
Nev
me
would
doing
have
it.
to seriously sell his banana to get our...
Right? No. We need to. We need to somehow. One of us needs to somehow
win the lottery?
Do a Sam Chewy and experience it. Do you know what I mean? We need to. We need to make that happen. And I nominate Nev because he'll have a far better sort of well, nothing else. He's got a better camera than the rest of us, but.
It'd be nice to do that sort of thing one day, wouldn't it?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
You would have thought the prices might have come down a bit, mightn't you?
Especially given what's going on. Nobody wants to fly.
They haven't really.
No.
Jonathan Warner in the chat room says that some of his friends flew to Milan today on Ryanair, and there was 26 passengers on board.
Oh, glorious! That's the way forward. Yeah, it's like business class there.
Blimey, you could all
got a row each.
Nearly all get a front row seat and an overwing exit seat, couldn't you? With that many people on board.
Okay. Yeah, and on that bombshell.
Yeah,
that is where we bring the commercial news to a close.
Yes, so I hope you all enjoyed those news stories for this week. So what's coming up next then, Matt?
It's military time.
Oh, it's military time.
Yeah,
so Armando may not be here, but he has obviously supplied us with some military stories for this week. So take it away.
Guys, this first military story from the Air Force Times is a great one. General Charles Q. Brown has been selected to lead the U.S. Air Force as its next Chief of Staff. This is a historic nomination in that it would make him the first African-American officer to step into the chief's role in any of the military branches in the U.S. So Defense Secretary Mark Esper said in a release on Monday afternoon that President Trump had nominated General Brown to be the Air Force's 22nd Chief of Staff. General Brown, who is a highly decorated and experienced F-16 combat pilot, currently he serves as the commander of Pacific Air Forces. If he is confirmed by Congress, he will succeed General Dave Goldfein, who's been the Air Force Chief of Staff since July 2016. He would step down from his position this summer and retire. General Brown's nomination and appointment could bring more attention to the recruitment and the retention of minorities, which have typically been underrepresented at the top ranks of the service. He said, "I am truly honored and humbled by the nomination to serve as the Air Force's 22nd Chief of Staff. If confirmed, Shireen, his wife, and I look forward to building upon the legacy of General Dave and Don Goldfein and the many air power giants before who have served our Air Force and our nation with such great dedication."
Oh, that's a really lovely story, isn't it?
Mm. And a decorated pilot as well, F-16 combat pilot, nevertheless. Very popular aircraft. Mr. Warner loves those very much.
Does he?
Mm.
He likes anything grey.
I know.
Yeah.
That's what he's like. Next story. This one is on thedrive.com. And we covered a story, actually, not so long back about having these unmanned
the drones in operation
for refueling.
Yeah, absolutely, for reconnaissance and things like that.
So obviously, if you're a drone flying, yes, and you're
registered, obviously,
or registered drone, yeah. But if you are a drone and you're flying and refueling and stuff, you're obviously going to want some help in case someone nasty turns up. So this headline is: General Atomics wants to give aerial tankers their own missile-laden loyal wingman drones. So that's quite handy. So General Atomics has revealed what it appears to be a previously unknown unmanned aircraft concept called the Defender. It's capable of air-to-air combat and mid-air refueling. The company says its primary mission would be to protect high-value airborne assets, such as airborne early warning and control aircraft, standoff reconnaissance planes, and aerial refueling tankers. Concept art of the drone appeared online a day after the news broke that the US Air Force is seeking to abruptly halt purchase of the MQ-9 Reapers, one of the firm's flagship products, something that they say here at the War Zone would be very likely to lead to disclosure of the new potential business opportunities. The official Twitter account of General Atomics Aerospace Systems Division, or GSASI, posted an artist's conception of the Defender on February the 27th. The tweet included hashtags for the Air Forces Association 2020 Air Warfare Symposium, but at the time of writing there does not appear to have been a major announcement about the project. Now there is a picture on the story, and if you take yourselves over to the show notes for the show, Matt might pop it on for you, you never know. But obviously it's a good idea.
I was reading the chat room. Sorry.
He was reading the chat room. It's a damn good idea, actually, because if you are obviously a refueling drone.
Is the tweet you're talking about? Or
the actual picture on the story is
it? Okay.
It's an artist concept picture of it on the story.
Right.
For those of you listening to the show as an audio show, you won't obviously be able to appreciate this, but it does look quite menacing, I should say, this particular drone, I should say. But handy to have, like it says here in the story, if you are a reconnaissance aircraft or another larger aircraft, to have this kind of help beside you should anything go bad. But there we go. For those of you watching in the YouTube world, Jonathan Warner, I know you're in the chat room, so he'll appreciate that picture. But an artist,
this is surely this is where it's going to go, though. Isn't
I know.
It? You know, it's like, I mean, without the pilots and stuff, I don't know. Is it very sporting though to sort of all do it by via computer link? I don't know.
Well, as long as I don't get an update. Windows update.
Well, yeah, you don't want a Windows 10 update mid-flight. Obviously, that's going to be a bit of a technical issue. But absolutely, it's. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Nev?
Don't use Windows 10.
There we go.
Well, quite, yes. And on that bombshell, we'll move on. Quite, yes. Whose go is it next? I think it's you,
Nev. Yeah,
yes.
Nev's going to a country where I used to go as a child. I did like this country.
Oh,
actually.
really?
Mm.
Okay.
Well, this article has got more acronyms than I've ever seen before in my life. And having clicked all the way through the ads, I think I've finally got to the story here. But
good luck, everyone.
It's on the defenceweb.co.za, so it's a South African one, and it says that the United States has approved a possible military sale to Tunisia of 4 AT-6C Wolverine light attack aircraft worth an estimated $325 million, including associated equipment. The U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency notified Congress of the possible sale on the 25th of February after Tunisia requested 4 AT-6C aircraft, as well as 468 Mark 81 250-pound bombs, 48 Mark II 500-pound bombs, and three 290 advanced precision kill weapon system rockets, 2 spare Pratt & Whitney PT-6A 68D 1600 engines, 6 L3 Westcam MX-15D multispectral targeting system, and 6 12.7mm machine guns, as well as other equipment and training. The proposed sale will improve Tunisia's ability to meet current and future threats by increasing their capability and capacity to counter terrorism and other violent extremist organization threats. The AT-6 platform will bolster their capability to respond to and engage threats in multiple areas across the country. Additionally, the procurement of the AT-6 aircraft strengthens interoperability between Tunisia, regional allies, and the United States, the DSCA says. Textron Aviation Defence is the primary contractor for this contract, and it says that Tunisia last year requested a dozen T-6C Texan 2 trainers, with the DSCA notifying Congress of this sale on the 10th of October 2019. The DCSA said Tunisia had requested the possible sale of 12 T-6C Texan 2 aircraft, spare engines, flight trainer, spares, ground handling equipment, support and support worth an estimated $234 million. The proposed T-6 sale is aimed at replacing Tunisia's aging trainer fleet and allowing Tunisia to continue training pilots to support its counter-terrorism and border security missions. The DCSA said the Tunisian Air Force flies the F-5 Tiger II, MB-326, L-59T and SF-260 aircraft in the combat and training roles. Morocco is the only other African nation that flies the T-6s, ordering 24 for $185 million in October 2009. These were delivered from 2011. The T-6 is a development of the Swiss Pilatus PC-9 turboprop trainer and was developed to fill the Joint Primary Aircraft Training System role for the US Air Force and the US Navy. The C model is a further refinement of the T-6A Texan II with an integrated glass cockpit, advanced avionics suite, and hardpoint wings that can accommodate auxiliary fuel tanks. In addition to the hardpoint wings, the T-6C's upgraded avionics include a head-up display, up-front control panel, 3 multifunction displays, and hands-on throttle and stick controls. This equipment mirrors the systems and capabilities of frontline Stryker fighter aircraft, whilst retaining all of the inherent training and flying characteristics of the T-6 trainer. The AT-6C Wolverine light attack aircraft has 7 hard points, allowing it to carry 1,860 kilograms of ordnance, including HMP 400 .50 caliber machine guns, Mark 81 and Mark 82 unguided bombs, GPU-12, GUB-58, GBU-49 and GBU-51 Paveway 2 guided bombs, laser-guided rockets, AGM-114 Hellfire missiles and flares. Targeting is through an MX-15D multi-sensor suite with colour and infrared cameras, laser designator, laser illuminator, and laser rangefinder.
Now, I was lucky enough to see one of these, not at last year's Dubai Air Show, but at the previous Dubai Air Show that I went back in 2018. Saw one of these up close and personal on the stand. And if you've ever seen one of these close up with all the ordnance underneath the wings, I took a few pictures actually at the time. They are literally like flying tanks. These things are just like, you wouldn't want to upset one of these, on a night out, because they would,
be cross.
Be cross. And they are literally like flying tanks, fully loaded up with, it's just amazing, these aircraft. How they even get off the ground with all the ordnance underneath is amazing.
Mind you, you see, I would say that about any aircraft, full stop. I mean, it's like how the A380 gets in the air with all its people in it. I can't even get my head around that. Yeah.
So, last story then, Matt.
Yep.
And
Air Force magazine. This
is a kind of a passenger conversion, which is obviously...
Yeah, absolutely. So say Air Force magazine, airforcemag.com, and the headline is Goldfein USAF won't use KC-46 unless it has to. So Chief of Staff General David Goldfein told the Senate legislators on the 3rd of March the service will not use the new KC-46 tanker unless absolutely necessary to fight a powerful adversary. The wide-ranging Senate Armed Services Committee hearing, the first of multiple chances the Air Force has this week to argue for its $169 billion budget request, continually circled back to the Pegasus tanker's most pressing issue, its faulty remote vision system. The RVS is supposed to let airmen see where the plane's refueling boom is in relation to an aircraft it is trying to gas up. But at around 10 feet from the receiver aircraft, the RVS doesn't focus well enough to connect, sometimes causing the operator to hit the nearby plane. I think we covered this story, didn't we? I think a while ago. And we are meeting every day on that topic, the Air Force Secretary Barbara Barrett said. It is really one of the highest priorities in the building. She reiterated the Air Force's intent to find a solution to the RVS problem by the end of March. Boeing's new Chief Executive Officer, David Calhoun, committed to me that the KC-46 was his top military priority, and he was going to do what was required to fix it. Goldfein said, I have seen a change in behaviour of that company since he took over. That's why we're more confident sitting here today than we have a serious fix on the table. The KC-46 is slated to be ready for operations in 2023 or 24, but Goldfein still isn't comfortable enough with the tanker to let it fly regular missions. Instead, the Air Force will only send it into battle with highly trained crews if absolutely necessary. Without an RVS fix in place, airmen would not only deal with blurry vision, but also issues like a blinding glare off of the receiver plane on clear sunny days. If we go to a high-end contingency, we will put every KC-46 we have into the fight, Goldfein said of a conflict with a country like Russia or China. We don't use it for day-to-day operations, but it will be made available for a contingency. In addition to refueling, Pegasus is built to perform aircraft and aeromedical missions. Goldfein said that the Air Force is still in the process of certifying the KC-46 for aeromedical flights. The jets will begin aeromedical missions as soon as certification is complete. So the KC-46 itself is a $32 billion, 179 jet program expected to deliver aircraft into the late 2020s after the Air Force received its first Pegasus more than a year behind schedule. The service is buying about a dozen of the aircraft each year, though its top uniformed officer said the product isn't worth the cost right now. He added that the service and Boeing also need to determine a schedule for retrofitting already built tankers with the new RVS. The Air Force hopes that improvements to the KC-46 will help stop its tanker shortage from worsening as it looks to retire some of the KC-135s and the KC-10s in the fiscal year 2021 and beyond.
So a little bit of knowledge on the KC-46. Obviously, most of you will know it's based on the 767 a very popular aircraft for Boeing. Matt can go down and buy one of these tomorrow if he likes for just a shade around 240 million.
As long as it's not a 757.
No,
that's
76.
fine.
This is totally different. You can just go and buy one of these.
Right. Okay.
Powered by Max Flight would be happy. These are powered by Pratt & Whitney PW4062 turbofans. Maximum speed, cruise at 0.86 or 570 miles an hour. Range of 6,385 nautical miles. Global is possible with in-flight refueling on that as well. And as Matt said, can be used for carrying patients
absolutely.
in built-in aeromedical evacuation stuff, but can also still carry 114 passengers if need be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there we go.
It's I do get sometimes I do wonder that all this transparency with various governments is that why are you telling they mentioned both China and Russia in that article as if they were to go, why would you tell them essentially then that you've got a problem with your KC-46 tanker? Just me? Okay, fair enough. Well, that's where we bring the military segment and indeed the show more or less to a close. That's the lot for this week, really. Social media, do please search for us on there. You'll find us on social media by searching for Plain Talking UK. Our WhatsApp number, which Carlos is in charge of, so you can get hold of him whenever you like. Whenever you like. I personally recommend about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
That's +44 757 22 49166. That's +44 757 22 49166. The email for the show is podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. The website www.plaintalkinguk.com. There you can buy some fabulous t-shirts and maybe one day mugs if we can ever get the price down. And why not subscribe to us if you haven't done so already on our YouTube channel? You'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room. Go to www.youtube.com and again search for Plain Talking UK. We mentioned it earlier on our website. You've got the Amazon link. You can do your shopping through that link, which Carlos apparently has used. That way you can contribute to the show without actually having to physically put your hand in your pocket for other than what you were buying already. And of course, Patreon is a service that we use here. We've got some wonderful Patreon donators that Nev was telling us all about earlier in the show. Take yourself to, and in fact, actually, while I was doing that, I managed to bring it up. So there we go. You can take yourself to www.patreon.com and you can search for Plain Talking UK, and that's how you can subscribe to the show.
Now, Nev has got a very important piece of news for everyone now. For those of you who've been listening to the show for the last 9 weeks, will know that we've got the we've been playing the amazing interview with Captain John Hutchinson. Now, Nev, what's the news?
Well, due to popular demand, we are going to make it available as a YouTube playlist. So you can see every single one of the episodes, all 9 of them, whenever you wish. And that's going to go live on our YouTube channel from 9:15 UK time tonight. So that will be worthwhile looking at again, absolutely. I think, if you want to refresh your memory about how fantastic it was.
It was a great series, wasn't it? We enjoyed it. I mean, actually, I feel a bit bereft because it is all over. I can't believe that it's all done. Actually,
don't forget, for those of you who love the series, and I know we all love the series, if you do love the series as much as we all did, and you've watched it, don't forget to share that link with your friends and family, because you can just on YouTube, you can click on the share link, and you can share the link to the whole series via YouTube or WhatsApp, and let all your friends and family watch that series as well.
Don't forget also there was we did a series previously, didn't we, with Sir Richard Johns, didn't we?
We did,
as well?
yeah, Sir Richard Johns.
That's also available for you to watch on our YouTube channel as well. That was a great series as well.
I know, we just keep, the bar is so high now.
I know. I mean, Nev, how are you? How are you going to top this one, Nev?
I don't know. I'm still working on a plan about who we can talk to next. I'm delighted with how those 2 interviews turned out. And
I think
to Nick for doing it for us.
I think an exclusive interview with Sir Richard Branson. I think
No, Willie Walsh.
What?
Willie Walsh.
Who's Willie Walsh?
Nev.
Oh, the CEO of International Airlines Group, so the parent company of BA.
Oh, IAG Group. Oh, I do apologise. Oh, okay. Oh, I should have known that, really, shouldn't I? Yeah.
We'll
I think we better end the show then, hadn't we? I have a hole to dig out of now.
I know. So thanks to everyone who has joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. All the usual family members in there. Thanks to everyone, and some new members as well in the chat room. So thanks for joining us on the show.
Give them a roll call, because we didn't do that in the top of the show, did we?
So let's have a quick breeze through the list of everyone. Hopefully I won't miss anyone. Obviously, we had Captain Rick Bell in earlier, but he had to leave.
He was actually watching whilst at work.
He was at work, I know. Whilst flying, hopefully not. Pilot Pip was in there. Our main man, Micah, Jenny in Rome, Tanya W, Chris Griggs, Masha was also in there. Stephen Howland, hello and welcome to you. MBF, Matthew Bunting Frame, hello to you. Tanya W. Scrolling down the list, hopefully I'm not missing one. And obviously Owen, because Owen is the legend. Oh. And with Stuart Hunt, hello to you, Stuart Hunt.
Do you remember Stuart?
I remember Stuart. Yeah,
that was our 100th show. In the Vulcan.
And also our resident medic, Dr. Steph, has been in the chat room. Richard Adams as well tonight. Hopefully, Jonathan Warner, our resident photographer for the aircraft type stuff, is in there as well. Loves his grey stuff. The Air Stig, hello to you, the Air Stig. He's quite busy on the old PTUK WhatsApp line. So
is he
hello
good?
to you,
Good,
Air
that's
Stig.
it. Yeah.
I know, and to everyone else as well. Not forgetting as well everyone who downloads the show as an audio download.
Absolutely.
Thank you for doing that. And if you do download the audio show through iTunes, just if you have 5 minutes of your time spare, possibly tomorrow while you're having your scrambled eggs on toast, just leave us a little review on iTunes, and that all helps to promote the show.
Indeed. So what's everybody up to this week then? So what have you got on your diary for this week?
Ooh, I'm actually doing a exhibition this week at a very
Londinium.
a very big telecommunications centre not far from here, and you'll know what I mean. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, very cool.
Yes, okay. I shall be there. I'm actually doing an exhibition with my boss.
That's a bit local for you, isn't
it?
I know.
Yeah. Me and Stuart are going to do that one Monday.
Excellent.
So we're going to have a road trip together.
So, Nev, coronavirus aside, any exciting locations today? Oh, no, that's it. I've got it now.
There is a possibility midweek of going to Billund in Denmark, the home of the plastic brick company.
Other plastic brick companies are available.
Yeah. And then when I've come back from there, Mrs. Nev and I have got a long weekend over in Bilbao in Spain, so the northern coast of Spain for the weekend.
And that is the excuse you're using for not joining us next week, I believe.
I'm afraid so, yes.
Nev, for God's sake, do not forget your sunscreen.
Well, it's only 12 degrees, so...
It doesn't matter, Nev. You'll burn anyway.
No. We could put you out in the
snow.
I'll
take my hand sanitizer as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You could save Bilbao while you're there, can't you?
And don't forget your mask and everything else.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
They'll help.
Oh, yes. I have to say that there was this week at the office, there was a full-on evacuation from the building that we're in. We're up on the 5th floor, so it took a while to come down. And honestly, there's people wearing masks, but not in the way that you would think. That there's people with them up on their forehead like some sort of LED torch.
Love it. Yeah, going back to what was it? Star Trek, wasn't it? Was it Worf?
Yeah,
Worf. Klingon. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, talk about a wardrobe fail. Honestly,
right. Very good.
You must wear it. Wear it properly.
Well, quite, yes. Jenny in Rome is saying, Nev, get yourself a copy of Living Danishly to read on your trip. It's great.
All right, I'll do that. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, we should wrap up.
So that's
now.
it then for episode 308 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. Enjoy your Sunday roasts from me and Matt here in the PTUK studios and Nev in the Nev Tech studios. Take care, everyone.
Everyone say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
See you.